Councillors, it is now 7:20, so we will reconvene our meeting. The first item of business now will be to move that we suspend standing orders 4.2 to allow this meeting to continue beyond the 6-hour duration. Moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor Brannigan. All those in favour? Against? Carried, thank you. Right, so moving now back to our agenda, 7.5, the amendments to the Development Contributions Policy, noting that Councillor Bishop is not seated at the table in respect of this. I'll move 3.1, 3.2 that the report be received. Moved, seconded by Councillor Allen. All those in favour? Against? Carried. So, David, anything you want to add to the report?
Yes, good evening. Thank you. The purpose of this report is to present some minor amendments to the Development Contributions Policy to aid the implementation of it. We've had the policy for 12 months now, and as it's over time, we've picked up some minor matters that would be best addressed. So we're seeking tonight Council to adopt the changes that have been identified. However, I do want to, since writing the report, have reflected and would like to change the recommendation in 3.4. So 3.4 initially included a couple of wording changes to what was identified as A, and what I'd like to do now is remove A and replace A with what was shown as the new C. So that is now on the screen ahead of you. So what had been in the paper as C, it's now been jumped up to now be A. And just to briefly explain that, the wording of A, it referred to social housing, but it also referred to it being sold to, where social housing is being sold to purchasers at a price below annual district median house price. And it just seemed a bit redundant in the case of social housing actually being sold. So I had looked to make a distinction there between social housing and affordable housing, but in doing so realised that it actually opened up quite broadly, that this could apply to essentially any house that was developed and sold below the, or proposed to be sold below the median house price, and probably didn't feel that was quite within the scope of what we were wanting to achieve with this minor amendment. And very comfortable that what is proposed is originally C but now A does capture the intent of the social housing opportunity, which is the one where we do want to perhaps provide that opportunity for the exemption to apply.
So we are, just for clarity, replacing A with C?
Yes.
Correct. Okay.
And happy to take any further questions. Probably what I would just finally add is this isn't intended to be a full review of the policy. This is intended just to pick up a couple of minor amendments that will assist with the implementation. A full review would still be anticipated within 3 years of the policy being adopted, which was June last year. And so the focus of this report is on those 3 key amendments that I've identified.
Councillor Jennings.
Just a related question to the appendix, which is at the back with all the cost of different projects, and which is based on the forward-looking of the LTP. With the increase in project costs, and for example, like tonight, the decision around the Foxton pool, does that automatically trigger changes to the figures, or does that require an amendment to the policy itself in terms of figures? Not necessarily saying that one project alone would trigger that, but just thinking about the broader context of cost escalation across all of the different projects.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. It generally that would be triggered through, you would do a revised LTP and then seek to revise your development contributions policy. So it doesn't automatically, a change in your growth spend doesn't automatically trigger a change needed in your development contributions policy. But saying that you can at any point where you do make a change, decide that you want to review your development contributions policy. So it's kind of a point in time when you decide that it's there's been a significant enough change in your spend that it warrants a change to the policy.
Any further queries? Okay, so in that case, let's move to 3.3. That policy 3.6.3.4 of the Development Contributions Policy be amended by including the following. E. If the Council Hearings Committee is unable to consider the request for review, an independent commissioner may be appointed and delegated to hear and determine the review. The independent commissioner shall be appointed by the Chief Executive in consultation with the Hearings Committee Chair. So we'll deal with that matter first. Councillor Allen.
Yeah, just speaking to that, Mr. Mayor, and I had a quick word with Mr. McCorkindale during the meal break. I'm keen that there be some criteria to inform that decision. The report references two reasons. One would be that we cannot meet the time frame, and I believe that could be set as a criteria. The second could be a conflict of interest. These are both in the report. That could be criteria number 2. And then I think we probably need a further criteria, which would be along the lines of any other reason or reasons which will be publicly identified in a council agenda, or words to that effect. Just speaking to that, it's about not just randomly deciding there'll be an independent commissioner. We need to have some rules and guidance around the circumstances and what we do it. And because it's new, I think number 3 gives us a catch-all ability, but an accountability in terms of having to then give the reason publicly through a council agenda. So could I just put that on the table as a thought?
So are you requesting an amendment to that recommendation then?
Yes, so those would be additional words if the table finds that acceptable.
Okay.
Yeah, the first 2 are already in the report, the words are there.
Have we got them written down anywhere? Deputy Mayor Mason, have you, David, would you mind just turning your mic off, please? Thank you. Deputy Mayor Mason.
Can I ask a point of clarity in relation to that? Would that mean that any reason, whether it be conflict of interest or perceived conflict of interest or unable to meet the timeframes, would have to be noted in a council agenda, because that would be counterproductive?
So to answer that, no. Those 2 criteria are already publicly identified. The purpose of the third one will be because it is new ground. There may be other compelling reasons that we haven't thought of, and we therefore have to account for those reasons publicly.
Sorry, the recommendation now reads, if the Council Hearings Committee is unable to consider the request for review, an independent commissioner may be appointed and delegated to hear and determine the review. The independent commissioner shall be appointed by the Chief Executive in consultation with the Hearings Committee Chair. An independent commissioner will only be used where matters related to timeframes and conflicts of interest or any other matter recorded in a council agenda, in a subsequent council agenda. Yes.
So Councillor Allen, hypothetically, situation came up, I work with the Chair of Hearings Committee, I appoint an independent commissioner. The reason I've appointed an independent commissioner is because of timeframes around the election, let's say. I make that decision and then I report that to a subsequent council agenda. Is that the intention of?
Yeah, I hadn't initially thought that through, but that does make sense now that wherever an independent commissioner is appointed, it's appropriate that under all three of the criteria that it be reported, just as reported as a matter of a fact. That it was done, and B, the reason.
Yeah, but you're not waiting for a council report for that decision to be made. I'm making the decision and it's just a reporting mechanism.
So is the table clear on the intention of that recommendation? So moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Deputy Mayor Mason. Any further discussion? Put the motion, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. So we now move to 3.4. That policy 3.6.1.2 of the Development Contributions Policy be amended to read as follows. Where a remission or reduction is requested under 3.6.1.1a, the Council must be satisfied that it can fund the reduction or remission from other sources, and one of the following criteria can be met. A, the development is a social housing development undertaken by a community housing provider that is registered with the Community Housing Regulatory Authority or any other partnership with Kāinga or Ministry of Housing and Urban Development has entered into an agreement to provide social housing or affordable housing. Or B, the applicant/developer is an incorporated society defined under Section 4.1 of the Incorporated Societies Act 1908, or a charity defined under Section 4.1 of the Charities Act 2005. And I1, the applicant/developer is not funded substantially by central government or any parent organisation or other party that provides it with income over and above its own sources such as donations, membership fees, or income from sales and services it provides. Or 1I, the development itself contributes to the health and safety or alleviates hardship, vulnerability, cruelty in the district community. Or 3, financial records show that the proposed development will not be able to proceed without a reduction or remission of development contributions. Do I have a mover for those? Councillor Brannigan, seconded by Deputy Mayor Mason. Any further discussion? Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you. Okay, I was very pleased that the first A was withdrawn, but I see that the second A is still saying that the development contribution can be rescinded or whatever under an agreement to provide social housing or affordable housing. So it was the affordable housing that bothered me in the original A. So this means that, does it? What is affordable housing? In the original recommendation, it showed that it was anything that was under the median value. So it was anything under the halfway didn't have to pay development contribution. So this means that Kāinga Ora or the Ministry of Housing can come in and provide affordable housing. Does that mean that anything under the median value is not subject to development contributions? Sorry, I should have clarified that with David before. I didn't see it.
So this is saying that we're a community housing provider or a developer partners with the government to develop social or affordable housing that they could be precluded. So an example
kind of thinking about your concern around homes under the median price. Let's say Kāinga Ora came to council and they've partnered with a developer and we are, they're prepared to build 100 Kiwi build homes. The Kiwi build homes would be considered, below the median price, and so arguably this would allow them to be considered for this. The way that you could add an additional bullet point that precluded a government agency, if that's what you're worried about.
What I'm worried about is that we've got a development contribution because somehow we need to fund the extra infrastructure to cope with growth, and we could get a quite large development coming in that doesn't pay development contributions, which means that we have to somehow fund that infrastructure ourselves, which really is loans, which is the ratepayer.
Yeah, and so this is where kind of the tension at a policy level is where, council has a blueprint and you have a housing action plan that says housing is your number one priority. And so, and within that it talks about the need for social and affordable housing. And so this is a mechanism in which you're going to be able to enable that and make it easier for those wanting to invest in social or affordable housing. You could strike out the word affordable and just keep social. But I think it's about recognising that if we think about the solution to our housing problems in Horowhenua, social housing is one part of that jigsaw puzzle. Access to affordable homes is another part of it. That might not be something council wants to incorporate right now. You just might want to have the social housing. But I just wonder if we check in with Mr. McCorkindale, who obviously had given us the advice around deleting the initial A, and just check that we're not getting at cross purposes.
Thank you. Yes, comfortable with the answer and explanation that's been given. I do draw a distinction between what was previously in there, which would have been open to all and sundry, essentially, to this being linked to Kāinga Ora or MHUD needing to be a partner as part of that, either social or affordable housing. So I think it does narrow it down quite a bit. Yes, it does still have potential to, for the scenario that Councillor Mitchell has outlined, to play out. And that, as I say, I think has been answered by the Chief Executive in terms of that tension around realising that it's part of the market which isn't being delivered at the moment, wanting to try and incentivise that in some way. But also, I think there are some protections within that wording there because it does limit it to where there is that partnership. Councillor Tukupu.
Just following off from Councillor Mitchell, so DCs are for the growth component of infrastructure and even other things that we've identified to fund around the district with that. However, in light of the reform and NTDC having the three waters, how then for future, like those areas that we've zoned and rezoning, when the time comes that stuff has to go on the ground, it's not ours would be definitely concerned that it gets done, but it's not our bill to pay no more necessarily directly. Is that the case? And so how does this marry with that?
Yeah, so through your worship, the government through the National Transition Unit are not clear right now about the mechanism in which effect would be given to development contributions, because of course that is a mechanism under the Local Government Act, and you'll notice that there's obviously the first part of the legislation which we've submitted to in the House. The second part of the legislation, as I understand it, is going to provide for the mechanisms that will allow the water services entity to give effect to some of the funding mechanisms. So if we think about our future from 1 July 2024, so this will have a life until we're responsible for three waters. And then post that, we'll still have a development contributions policy if that's the will of the council table, but we'll only be taking contributions for those assets and activities that council are funding and responsible for. And the Three Waters stuff will obviously be a responsibility of entity C, and they haven't indicated what that means in terms of development contributions, particularly recognising that across the 21 councils of entity C, not all of them have the same policy settings around development contributions.
And so at that point where we're not responsible, the schedule of fees that we currently apply, the portion of that which is for that would be deducted in the DCs on our part goes down.
Yeah, so what will happen is we're obviously going to do our amended LTP next year, and then we get to do an LTP again. And our 2024 long-term plan will be going to our community and saying this is what life looks like when we're no longer responsible for Three Waters reform. And so there'll be a whole lot of policies like our rating policy and like our development contribution policy, where we will be reconsulting with our community on how everything adds up in order for us to be effective from 1 July 2024.
And I know it's a little bit off the track, but it's definitely important. How then do we ensure that entity C will get that stuff in the ground so that we can realise the housing and the growth and all of that?
Because
how much pressure or how do we give effect to that?
Yeah, so through your worship, how we're going to ensure that is we're going to control and influence the bit that we can. And that bit is our Three Waters Asset Management Plan and our infrastructure strategy, hence the criticality of an amended LTP and front-loading as much investment in Three Waters infrastructure in the next 2 years so that shovels are in the ground, consents are in progress, so that a new entity can come in and very clearly see not just the needs but the current commitments that this district has made. And then the second part is obviously Horowhenua thinking very strategically about how they would have an advocacy voice around the regional representative group, and therefore what that means for appointments to the board.
So the motion's on the table. Any further discussion?
Mayor Wanden, I just want to reiterate that this is a minor amendment really to the policy, and it provides some clarity, I think, as Councillor Allen has spoken to in the previous motion of 3.3, but this provides some more clarity, particularly for the CE and the Chair of the Hearings Committee, in terms of where there was no ability to delegate to an independent commissioner, and where it provides now a really clear framework through these amendments for that process to happen. So it is a minor amendment, but an important one.
All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, sorry. We do have one more recommendation in that agenda item, and that is 3.5. The 2.9.1, Table 1 of the Development Contributions Policy be amended for a selection of levies as follows. And you'll see that those current totals have been amended by $1 in each case to an amended total. We're going to the nth degree to make sure that things are correct, aren't we? So I'll move, happy to move that. Anybody prepared to second that? Councillor Isaacs? I don't think there'll be any discussion, will there? Hopefully. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Right. Just had a conversation with the Chief Executive. We're going to not address the Three Waters Reform Bureau funding right now. We will come back to that later. There are a number of staff that are sitting here which need to report to different parts of the agenda, and for speed and efficiency, we will try and deal with those as quickly as possible and then come back to the Three Waters item. So we'll move to 7.7. If Councillor Bishop's out in the back, he's welcome to rejoin us. Page 173. So adoption of the Alcohol Control Bylaw 2022. Could I move 3.1, 3.2, that the report be received? Councillor Allen, Deputy Mayor Mason, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Welcome, Vi.
Tēnā koe, Your Worship, and tēnā koutou katoa. The purpose of bringing this report to Council this evening is to seek the adoption of the Alcohol Control Bylaw, and in doing so to make a decision on whether to include or not to include an extended area to the Waikawa Beach alcohol ban area. This report follows on from a decision of this Council on the 8th of June to go out and publicly consult on the review of the alcohol liquor bylaw. There were 7 submissions that were received in total. None of the submitters wish to speak to their submission, and so for best use of time and efficiency, we brought it straight to Council for a decision, and I acknowledge that ordinarily it would go to the Hearings Committee, but given so few submissions. Happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Jennings.
Just one really minor question, is in relation to section 9 of the bylaw, which is about the exceptions for around transportation, which wasn't something that was raised by submitters, but it just flagged an interest. So here's a scenario for you. I go to New World here in Levin, buy a whole lot of booze for a party that's coming up on the weekend. I then go and visit Joe Mason at Foxton Beach, and I get pulled over on my way to visiting Joe. And does section 9 mean that there's an exception? Because the wording that troubles me is within the alcohol control area. So it means that it technically sort of reads to me as it has to be purchased in that area and then you're found with it in the same area. Is that the case?
Thank you, Councillor Jennings. I think the most important part of that section is actually in the unopened state, so it's moving it from a licensed premises to another area in an unopened state. So whether it's in that control ban zone or not, it's that it's not being consumed at the time.
I just note that the police didn't actually respond to that, so they're obviously comfortable with the bylaw as it exists at the moment.
So we did some pre-consultation with them and solicited some feedback. They were comfortable with the current areas, with the extension of the Levin area, where we've taken it out to include outside a couple of other licensed premises. So I think it's down to Rena including the street that's there.
In another role I undertake, it's interesting that I've not been presented with any charges that have been made against people having liquor within the CBD for some time, whereas a few years ago it was a regular occurrence, and I'm just interested in the police response in terms of how they're dealing with it now. That was all.
Look, I couldn't comment on that. I guess my only response would be, what might happen if the alcohol ban zone wasn't there.
Any more further questions?
Just very quickly, and it's just along that line, and Vi, probably I can't comment in a number of ways, but the experience of the alcohol bylaws is it's a tool in the toolbox to to contain issues that are arising and might be arising in an area where it's undesirable for that kind of activity to carry on. So these bylaws are actually, while they're not need to be widely enforced, they're a very good tool in the toolbox if need be. So, yeah.
Thanks, Ryan. Oh, Councillor Tukapu, you'll have to have a faster finger, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Oh, just ever so quickly, just for future review, if this particular one could come back to the youth network, because there were members in the group that signalled they would have liked to, and they were outside the time frame. And then the other thing is to mention that the vaping one, our YET group, our youth are raising it at least for the last 2 meetings, and would like to be part of the timing for that one.
It's probably, do the YEP report to the Community Wellbeing Committee though, do they? Do they report to any, so we see no report from them in terms of what?
Not for a long time, but they'd like to come back at some point.
So through your worship, I think that there's some work that we can do, and Councillor Tukapu has already talked to Mr Harvey and I about how we can improve that interface between the decisions and the work of council, and how we can ensure that the youth voice through YEP is meaningful.
Cool. Okay, so Councillor Allen.
Happy to move the recommendations.
Thank you. Seconds, you don't need me to read all those, do you? No, that's good. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. So moving to 7.8, the Donnelly Park Development Reinstatement Capital Program. Recommendation that the report be received, and 3.1, 3.2. Can I have a move? Deputy Mayor Mason, seconded by Councillor Kay Simmons. All those in favour? Against? Carried. So we have a recommendation, and we've got Mr Nelson to report to it. Welcome, Arthur.
Thank you, Your Worship, and councillors for having me just talk to this item. It's essentially around reinstating a budget that was missed off this year's funding to continue the work at Donnelly Park that was agreed in the 2018-2038 plan. I've probably got nothing else to add other than that, and happy to take questions.
Councillor Isaacs.
This is actually not a question for Arthur, this is actually a question for you, Your Worship, or the CE. Probably should have declared that I am an HK cricket board member, and quite happy to stand out of this conversation if you would so choose.
I would agree with that you probably do have a conflict in this respect. So we will note that. Any further questions for Mr Nelson? So the recommendation is that Council reinstate the omitted budget for Year 4 of the Cricket Improvement Program at Donnelly Park to the sum of $80,000. Happy to move that myself. Seconder, Councillor Jennings. Any further discussion? Put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. 7.9, the Butterfly Pathway Update. Move 3.1, 3.2 that the report be received. Deputy Mayor Mason, seconded by Councillor Kay Simmons. All those in favour? Against? Carried. You're still here, Arthur. Okay, so you're going to talk to this?
Yeah, I am down to it, Your Worship, but I haven't really got a huge amount to add, other than I'm assuming the report has been read, and I'll take any questions.
Just noting for councillors that all we're doing is confirming our continued in-principle support and request that the Chief Executive report back to Council with a proposal, and that we support the establishment of a project working committee, a group to develop the proposal. So we're not actually deciding the technical details of the butterfly pathway where it goes.
Completely support that, Your Worship, but I wondered if I could request that I be a member of the project working group.
Come to that in a minute. Are there any questions, though, of the report for Mr. Nelson? Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you. I just want to check that members of the public can be part of that project working group and in fact probably make up the bulk of that project working group rather than council.
The survey we've just done and the quick poll, there was 4 people who put their hands up to be involved in this, and obviously we're looking at those 4 people to be on any committee or any project group moving forwards.
So does that mean we're not discussing what we want 2 or 3?
No, absolutely not.
Well, unless the Chief Executive wants some guidance in terms of what the preferred option is, but the recommendation is that we ask the Chief Executive to report back to Council with a proposal for the design and construction of a butterfly walkway.
So, through Your Worship, I think reminding Council that obviously this was something in principle that Council supported during the long-term plan, and I know that there's some really passionate people in the community that are keen to have seen this project progress. There is no funding allocated towards this project, but as I understand it, the intention was always that this was a community project that Council leads in an advocacy, facilitation and coordination role. And so the intention of recommendation 3.4 is for Council to kind of give it the green light. And so when I say the green light, that doesn't mean you need to choose a location, because that's some work that this project group can do to come back and, they can flesh all of that out, they can figure out who's going to pay for what and how is it actually going to work. But I do think that there is something in here that there is a risk that we spend lots of time writing reports to get permission from Council. Like if Council don't support this, they should say so now, otherwise we'll establish a working group and then write another report and bring it back to you in a few months' time that says, and here's our location and here's how it's going to happen. So while no decision's been made on an ideal location, I do think it's important that if there's not the intent around the table, let that be known now rather than let work continue, particularly when we've got such passionate people in the community wanting to progress this work and see Council support it.
Okay, so we'll move to 3.3. The Council confirms their continued in-principle support and requests the Chief Executive to report back to Council with a proposal for the design and construction of a butterfly pathway. I have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Tukapua, seconded by Councillor Kay Simmons. Any further discussion? Put the motion, all those in favour? Against? Carried, thank you. Now 3.4, the Council supports the establishment of a project working group to develop the proposal for the design and construction and to lead community engagement in attracting business and organisation support. So, probably might just ask the Chief Executive to explain how she thinks that process will work. How many do you think are needed on a working group, and how long it might take?
Well, we're building momentum here at Horowhenua District Council, so we want to apply some pace to things. I think a couple of elected members that can work with Mr. Nelson, a member of our community development team. I understand that Councillor Tukapua is already, there's a whole lot of passionate people that can work alongside that group. I think we should be in a position to bring a report back to council in a couple of months. But this is grassroots community development in action, where council doesn't need to do all the doing. Council is an advocacy and facilitation role.
So, if you remember, what I was going to suggest then, if we support this recommendation, then people need to signal whether they want to be party to that working group, either to Mr. Nelson or myself or the Chief Executive. Can we agree tonight? If we have more than 2 people, councillors, are you comfortable with 3? Doesn't matter?
No, but we'll put them to work.
Okay. All right. So let's put the recommendation first. Do I have I've moved and seconded? Have we got a mover and second? No. Can we have a mover and second? Councillor Kay Simmons and Councillor Tukapua. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay. Who around the table wishes to volunteer their services to support this working group? Deputy Mayor Mason, Councillor Kay Simmons, and I assume Councillor Tukapua. Do you wish to be on this working group, Mr. Councillor Bishop? You don't? Okay. So it looks like we've got some indication there of people who are prepared to contribute to that. Thank you. We look forward to receiving that report. All right, so we're now moving to page 229, the Infrastructure Operations Activity Update. Can I move 2.1, 2.2 that this report be received? Thank you, Councillor Isaacs and Councillor Brannigan. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Welcome, Daniel. And James.
Good evening.
Is there anything you want to add to the report?
We've got a team of dedicated activity managers and alliance manager here to answer any particular questions.
Okay.
Obviously, being a quarterly report, but in a financial, we're happy to answer questions, but we'll take that report as read.
Thank you. Can we then just move through the business priorities in terms of so that we're not backwards and forwards over each activity. So, are there any questions around the road maintenance activity, which is 3.1 to 3.11 to 3.110? There appear to be none. Any questions relating to the water and waste services activity, which is 3.21 to 3.24? Councillor Mitchell first.
Seeing as how you've got everybody there. Okay, just a couple of probably silly questions, but it talks about how the tornado caused power fluctuations and the wastewater plant, caused the water plant kept shutting down. I presume that we've got a generator that takes care of things like that?
Yes, the generator takes over, but the power fluctuations were very quick and precise. So the generators take a bit of time to kick in, and then that basically kicked in and kicked back straight out again because the power returned to site. So we're addressing those issues and trying to sort them out. So in future that doesn't happen.
Thank you. And the other one I saw you got quite new PVC pipe issues on page 242.
Is that around the burst pipe?
Yeah. So
So-
do we have any comeback on pipes like that that aren't doing what they should do, or is how many Ks have we got? What sort of big issue is that? A really big issue?
Yeah, we're taking that offline. Obviously, it's fairly confined in terms of material that was installed in that era, but we're undertaking some further investigation and due diligence across our asset management, but also known bursts with the Alliance team. So it's not a large extent at this point, but we're investigating it further.
Councillor Kedu.
Yes, Mike, I did declare, am I talking to, can I talk to the biodigestion system at the pot? Is this part of the wastewater system?
Sorry, Robert, I don't know whether that's the pot irrigation automation project. Is that what you're referring to?
I just heard wastewater, and I thought we would be able to talk about anything concerning anything that's to do with the wastewater system.
So just ask the question. I mean,
Okay, yeah. My question was around the biodigestion system at the pot. Then, how long has it? How has that been? When did we purchase that system? And how? And because we're doing maintenance, or it's broken down. That's why I read in the report. So how long has it been in action? That biodigestion system.
Yes, so we'll I'll defer to the team in terms of the age and maintenance regime, but it certainly signals that we're in a process of fixing a number of components around that wastewater plant, and in the longer term with growth, we're starting to look at options in terms of more resilient longer term upgrades, and that would be brought back as part of a separate briefing, and certainly timely around that LTP amendment process. So you can expect to see a range of options that we'll come back with, but I will defer to the operations team around the exact componentry there. But yes, and certainly some ongoing maintenance.
Oh yes, thanks for that. How long have we had that system in place? Is it last 2 years, 3 years?
Councillor Kudu, I'm speculating, but I'd say it'd be early 70s that was put in place.
Okay. My other question was around the matakarapa. So we had some overflows, and it just came up in a hapu meeting. So there was quite a concern about the overflows that were on matakarapa, and how are we dealing with those overflows, and are they going to be frequent overflows?
Yeah, so the overflow is from the infiltration around the recent storm events. So it was retained within the plant, but certainly we've taken action to look at the longer term solution around actually raising some of those pond edges, so we have additional capacity. But we've also struck in the middle of a wet winter period where there's been a project to look at expanding the irrigation field. So we've effectively started the winter with a full tank. Moving forward, ideally, we'd be able to irrigate over summer. We'll have an expanded field, and we won't be starting that wet winter period with a pond that's already very close to capacity. So it's certainly pushed those limits, and there's some additional work that the Alliance team's working to increase some of the bunding, similar to what's been done at the Helensville plant with some concrete bags, and effectively stabilising those banks to ensure that we've got that resilience.
Thank you.
If you may, mate.
Thank you, Your Worship. The page 233, 3.2, the stormwater defender, downstream defender. Can you just give a bit more detail around that, and why the Hokea Beach Road site was chosen, and what what the reductions might look like in terms of contaminants?
The reason Hokio Beach Road catchment area was selected because there's a high contaminants in the stormwater, and that's identified throughout our monitoring regime that we are currently undertaking. So that's the highest contaminant area, and that downstream defender has been, 9 of them installed at Taupo District Council, and it seems like it is working in terms of reducing the contaminant and also reducing the silt going into the drain.
Can I just ask, will there be some reporting coming back on that?
So what we're planning to do is that once it's installed, we're going to start monitoring regime, and we are going to do monitoring on a monthly basis or after rains, and then after that, once we have really good confidence, then we can extend the installation in other locations.
To allay any fears, Deputy Mayor, this was brought to the Projects Committee last week. It was, yeah, sure, agreed. Yeah. Okay, moving on to the Parks and Property area, 3.3.1 to 3.3.2. Okay, nothing there either. You let off. Now to the Horowhenua Alliance, 3.4. Any questions or clarification sought on that report? All right, doesn't look like it. Troy, look, just wanted to acknowledge the work that your team have done over the last couple of months, especially with our weather and the way that's been handled. I know it's been quite stressful, and you've spent more than enough hours dealing with all those matters, but just please pass on our thanks to you, to your team, for the way that they've responded. It's been great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will do.
You may go. Okay, so we now move to the infrastructure development activity update, page 249. Could I move 2.1, 2.2 that this report be received? Councillor Isaacs, and I'll second that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. So again, just taking questions, Daniel, if there are any, or is there anything that you want to specifically add?
Yeah, just a couple of covering comments, really drawing your attention to some upcoming briefings and papers to come back to the September council meeting. So in relation to Taraika, some of the LTP nominated projects that are advancing there, you can expect a paper back at the September council meeting around how some of those projects are moving forward and funding allocations. And then around section 3.2, some good news with the signalling of $1 million worth of external funding for the Waitara Beach Surf Club. We're also busy working away in conjunction with the Surf Club around the support for another application to Eastern Central Community Trust. So you can expect a paper coming back in September, which will effectively have that quantity surveyor peer review of the construction estimate. So you can effectively see some real numbers and some recommendations around how we move forward. So that'll really come down to the wire in terms of getting those numbers together in preparation for that 14 September meeting. But that's the plan, is to have that on the agenda. And then lastly, around section 3.6 with the development engineering, just drawing everyone's attention to the 224 sign-offs and the fact that this is our second year in a row that we've exceeded that 95th percentile. So 485 lots were signed off through that development engineering team this financial year gone, which is in excess of that 95th percentile for the second year running. So happy to take any questions.
Okay, then, just going through the different businesses of that report. So Taurika, any questions around Taurika? The Waitarere Surf Life Saving Club. Councillor Jennings.
Sorry, I was hoping to just ask a question around 3.1.2, which is the Cambridge Tarara water main. There's obviously quite a bit of interest in, I'll express it as some frustration with the state of Cambridge Street and Cambridge Street and Tarara Road around this project. And so the report here gives us some timelines in terms of reinstatement in August and September. Are we confident around those timeframes?
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's been a struggle with the weather, I'll be perfectly honest. Just yesterday we were out on site closing out the final preparations for asphalt for this Friday. Booked a nice weather window to be in there to complete the intersection of Enterprise Drive, and sure enough we uncover some pretty average material underneath, so we're now sort of set back a week or so, but confident that that asphalt crew is now rebooked for Wednesday week. So certainly it's all really down to the weather. If we can get a couple of weeks, which I think everyone would appreciate at the moment, things will clean up pretty quickly. But yeah, appreciate the public and the business owners' support and patience whilst we complete the work.
Admire your optimism, Daniel. 3.3, the northeast of Uncoli Pond. 3.4, the Tokomaru wastewater disposal. 3.5, Page Road water reservoir. Councillor Jennings.
I just wonder whether Mr. Haig's signal kind of a paper that we expect to be bringing to council around the Pogues Road reservoir and the consenting pathway.
Yeah, so expecting to put another paper together to make the September council meeting, really just to give a thorough snapshot of some of the pathways that are being considered around consenting strategies and opportunities to partner up with other agencies around that. So you can expect to see that next month also.
And finally, 3.6, the Development Engineering Quarterly Report. Thank you, Daniel. Look forward to all those reports next month.
Thank you.
So now 7.12, page 259, Council Resolution and Actions Monitoring Report. Move 2.1, 2.2 that this report be received. Councillor Isaacs, Councillor Kay Simmons, seconding. Thank you. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Any questions of this report? Okay, there being none, we'll move on to 7.13, the Long-Term Plan 2021-2041 Monitoring Report. I'll move 2.1, 2.2 that this report be received. Seconded, please. Councillor Allen, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Any items on this report that councillors wish to seek clarification or question?
Through you, Your Worship, if I could maybe just introduce this by acknowledging that there are a number of items in this report where we're off track, or we're not meeting the timeframes that were agreed to when the long-term plan was adopted. I think that the extent of actions, and when you layer on top of that the significant number of competing priorities that the organisation has in front of us, certainly, some of the work that you'll see from the executive leadership team in the coming couple of months is how we can provide you an opportunity to help us prioritise where energy goes, because at the moment, trying to do 100 things for and not do them very well, I'd much rather us focus on doing some things really, really well.
Thank you. Agreed. There being no questions then, can we move to 7.14, the mayoral report? I'll move that this be received. 2.1, 2.2. Can I have a seconder? Thank you. Councillor Katie Simmons. Any questions or queries that anybody has? Councillor Jennings.
Just to note that other councils appear to have dismissed our wisdom around some of the LGNZ remits, but a bit surprised at some of the things that have carried.
Can I just say that unfortunately we were completely out of sync with most other councils in regards to our recommendations, because the majority in terms of who voted for these was in the 90s nearly, and we were by far the minority in terms of being against a couple of them. Well, I think they'd probably have a different view on that. Yes. And finally, Mr. Roach, my apologies, I forgot to ask for the Foxton Community Board's report at the start of this meeting, and councillors, you will have received an email earlier that had only from the start of this meeting. It has, but Mr. Roach will no doubt enlighten us to the contents of his report. Thank you.
That wasn't him. Right. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I didn't think you would have forgotten me, but never mind. Oh, no. Just an update on from the board. Holden Parade Park, well underway. The skating rink was hot mix, so we're just waiting on the weather so we can do the markings.
Excuse me, councillors, would you mind just listening? Thank you.
Who that? Oh, me, sorry, I thought you were talking to me. Right, Mavtech is reopened again, and they had a great weekend on the long weekend. They thank the Horowhenua District Council for enabling this event to happen. Makariki celebrations have been off well, and we'd like to thank the council staff for their hard work and long hours they put in on the day. The one that we're really looking at is the CCTV cameras. We've had 3 meetings now. We've identified some sites. A disappointing part that has come up is the government have changed their mind or withholding the funds from the crime proceeds fund. And so what they're doing, the CCTV group, carrying on, getting this thing all up, ready to go. So basically looking for, if any funding comes available, we'll be ready to move. What I'm going to have at the next board meeting is I'll have this on here, and I'm going to ask the board members that we write to our member of police and our local parliamentary member, seeking that they look at reinstating this funding application. And I was just, because it was there's millions of dollars in it, but it was one way of getting this camera and all these cameras up and going without going back to the public. And I'll leave the last bit out because that's already been decided. And I'd like to thank you all, and any other questions I'm quite happy to answer.
Thank you, David. Any questions of David's report?
Yeah.
As the mission.
Can I just ask, I thought that the cameras in Foxton, on Foxton Beach, were funded by the freeholding account.
Oh, no, the cameras at the Foxton Beach are funded from the freeholding account, but not Foxton. We haven't got any yet, and that is what this working party is working on. And the enthusiasm was come about because of this crime funding. I think it's recovery money from crimes, and there's millions of dollars in there to go out to these things, these projects or a project. But as I said, the government have indicated they're going to withhold it for now and maybe come back with some other venue, I don't know. But I would like to think that we lobby government and lobby our local MP, because it's a good good source of funding for it. I believe it's an appropriate source of funding because it's crime prevention, and it's the ideal place. Can't fund it with the criminal, we must fund it from somewhere, rather than come up from ratepayers. Mr. Mayor.
Good luck with that. Okay, thank you, David. So now we have one more item left on the agenda, and that is 7.6, our Three Waters Reform Better Off Funding. Can I first of all just move receipt of this report, 2.1, 2.2. Thank you, Councillor Brannigan, and seconded by myself. All those in favour? Against? Carried. So, as we explained earlier, the first part of this agenda item is to endorse the funding principles used to guide the decision on how the funding will be allocated, and those are listed out in under number 5 of the agenda on page 168. And secondly, then to try to get some sort of priority listing for those projects that will give guidance to the Chief Executive in terms of how to progress this, and for a final report to come back to the September Council meeting. Yes.
Yeah, so I wonder, and particularly for the public's benefit, if I just speak to kind of how we've got to where we are today. And as we all know, the government have confirmed their intentions around Three Waters reform, and as part of that, they have offered councils some better off funding. We have to apply for that funding, and there are some quite kind of tight time frames in us progressing the work to apply for that funding. As a council, we are able to apply for $4.99 million. Initially, applications closed on the 30th of September, but recently the government has announced that that has been extended until December. My advice to the table, though, is that we need to progress with this work. We need to submit applications as if the timeframe was September, in order to ensure that this organisation is able to put its focus on the induction process and support of a new council following the election. This item in council, kind of considering the multitude of projects, is going to be a bit muddly, and that is because we've tried to come up with a process and come up with a way of everyone feeling like they've got an opportunity to put projects on the table, in the absence of, I suppose, being in a position where we had a whole lot of business cases ready to go that we could quite quickly put in front of council with an already agreed matrix and prioritisation tool, but we're not in that position. And so how the projects, which you can see referenced on page 169 and 170, have come to be, is expressions of interest were sought from council staff and elected members to put forward ideas on projects that have either currently sit in the long-term plan or have been talked about for some time, but funding has been a barrier. I want to particularly highlight those projects with an asterisk next door to it on page 170, and just remind Council that these are projects that you did not discuss in the evening of your Dragon's Den session. These were projects that were kind of suggested by elected members afterwards, or my advice was it was not appropriate for you to discuss it at the time because of important decisions like the Foxton Aquatic decision this evening. There is one additional project that needs to be added to that list, and so that is the Foxton Courthouse project, and that is something that I know Councillor Allen has signalled to his colleagues, but it's something that the Foxton Historical Society have obviously been advocating to this council for some time, and some funding from the Better Off funding may help them ensure their dream of protecting one of our most I suppose cherished heritage buildings in Horowhenua is realised. I'm happy to take questions. Jacinta and I are going to attempt in guiding elected members once they have agreed on some principles. Jacinta has developed a bit of a spreadsheet that would allow us to map your top priorities, and then hopefully, eloquently it might tell us where we put our focus, but would just kind of appreciate your patience, but also help as we try and navigate ultimately what needs to be us as officers walking away with real clarity on the top projects that we're going to allocate this funding towards, and 28 projects is not an option. We have to make some decisions of where we say some projects are more important than others, and that will mean that some will need to go off the list for this funding round.
So, any questions in regards to the process? If you mean most.
Not so much the process, but the guiding or draft principles that are on page 168, 169. I think there's.
Can we?
Is that where can I discuss that?
Surely.
Thank
I just want to make sure that everyone's comfortable with the process that is going to unfold first. If there's any clarification needed around that.
Can I just clarify the comment from this Chief Executive about then the reducing the scope of the projects, the number, because you talked tonight about capacity constraints within the organisation. So I think earlier in the evening you talked about, I can't recall when you talked about it, but the optimum number to take forward. So is a smaller number of larger projects more desirable, or can you just talk to us around where you see the optimum number of projects in terms of management within the organisation?
Yeah, through you, Your Worship, I'm not sure I have a view on an optimum number. Certainly if I was providing council advice, my advice would be, you need to back one or two transformational projects that when you stand in a room in 5 years' time, you're like, yeah, that was Better Off. But there are also some smaller, cheaper projects here that could make a transformational difference in the community with little funding. But hypothetically, let's say council said, we like all of these projects, we can't decide, let's just divide equally 4.99 million across these 28 projects. That's not an option, because a number of these projects can't commence or be completed without full funds. But also the idea that over the next 2 weeks, which is how long officers have to now prepare a report to come back to the final September council meeting, for us to turn around proposals and the funding application for all of these projects, that's just not achievable.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Mason, you may now talk about the principles that you want to guide us with.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you to the Chief Executive for providing those 6 guiding principles. But I wanted to introduce a 7th potential guiding principle in addition to those or to strengthen probably the fourth principle that's there, that council will aim to ensure that funding is spread across the district. I would like that to be more specific in saying that council will ensure that funding is spread across the district by allocating funding on a population basis per capita across the district, so that there is some equity across the district per capita as opposed to. Pardon?
Sorry, when you say per capita, are you saying by ward, on a ward basis?
Apologies, yes, I hadn't quite finished. So that would be by ward, and it would include Kirikiri, Miranui, Lavan, Waipuhu and the Māori or Horowhenua wards, so across those wards. And I did put that question earlier as to what it might look like, and the Chief Executive provided some indications of what the percentages would be for that. Kirikiri 15, Miranui 8, Lavan 44, I'm rounding these off, Waipuhu 19 and Horowhenua 14.
So I suppose what we're seeking now is either endorsing all, some, or those principles that we've got in front of us, and also the slight amendment, well, the amendment that Deputy Mayor Mason is proposing as well. So, Councillor Allen, have you got a view on?
Yeah, I have a view on two of them really. With the second one I'll come back to later, but I'll just directly address Deputy Mayor Mason's proposal, which is that it be distributed on a population per capita basis. Look, I really have an issue with that, and to me the worry is that while proposing that, Deputy Mayor Mason also used the word equity. And equity isn't about saying we'll dish out this much because these people have a population this size, etc. Equity is about identifying where the need is and fulfilling that need. So I see the two as being incompatible. I really want us to think district-wide on this. And this isn't patch protection. This isn't about, I'm kitty or whatever. It's about saying, coming back to the first principles, when you're elected, you sign the oath. It's about the district as a whole and setting priorities where you see them. And I just finish by saying this, that when in 1989, when the transformation of the new council occurred, the first multi-million-dollar project back then was the construction of the Shannon Bridge, the Manawatu River Bridge. And that blew all other projects out of the water, and it was a little part of the district, certainly not where most of the population was. That was about equity and about identifying where the need is. So those are my reasons that I oppose that suggestion.
I'm very impressed with your memory bank, Councillor Allen. Any other views? Councillor Jennings?
Well, I tend to agree with Deputy Mayor Mason. I think that it's a useful framework in which to operate. It doesn't have to be rigid, but it's a useful starting point. I think that having reflected on the report, there are probably sort of a couple of other principles that I don't necessarily need that they need to be captured, but I think we all need to be conscious of, which is that preference for large transformational projects. I think that that's actually really, really key. Also, return on investment, I think, needs to be captured somehow in there, but also having regard to the previous stimulus funding allocations. So, obviously, either continuing to, expand on some of that, or if something's already been allocated something, then don't duplicate that. So, I think that those are three things that certainly I'm going to take into account, and wanted to offer those into the mix.
Councillor Mitchell.
Okay, so first off, would it be your idea that we have to agree on the 6 priorities first?
I don't think we're not going to get total consensus on the 6 priorities. I think they, though, may influence your priorities in terms of the specific projects that you want to see put forward. To be honest, I don't hold as much value to the principle that the projects that fall within those areas of the district that pay targeted rates is an important principle as to other parts of the other principles, if you like. I don't think that to me is a lower priority than other things. So that will influence the decision that I have in terms of those projects that I would like to see progress. I don't think we need to reach agreement on the principles, but as Councillor Jennings has also indicated, he's got other principles and values that he will include as part of the reason as to why he will support projects that he wants to see progress.
Okay, right, that's all right. I thought we had to agree on this first. So, I agree that there needs to be some sort of equity or distribution across the district, but I think if it went to a per capita basis, it would just be too difficult to implement. And I am concerned about the fact that we give priority to those areas that pay targeted water, and I understand wastewater rates, simply because people move across the district and use assets and infrastructure in other parts of the district. They don't just stay in their own little place where they pay their rates. So it's I think that would be really difficult to actually use that as a guiding principle, personally.
Councillor Allen.
This is really a point of order, Mr. Mayor. I refer to page 167, recommendation 2.3. Now, there's a recommendation there that we agree on what the principles are. This discussion has now become a free-for-all where we talk about what we will personally take into account. And I think there's a real danger in that. It will take a bit of time, I know, but the recommendation says to us, are we going to agree, all of us, what are the principles which will guide the discussion? We need to then identify them, and then those become the rules for the discussion. But the way that the conversation is going now, people are saying, you need to realise that this will be a principle I've got. And with respect, Mr. Mayor, you seem to be endorsing that. You seem to be saying, look, let's all have our own principles and take them into account, which I think is at variance with recommendation 2.3.
It's not the way that I see the discussion going. To be honest, I don't think we can endorse the Three Waters Better Off funding principles, but then when it actually comes to supporting different projects, we will be influenced by different aspects of those principles. I don't think we can say that we can give equal sort of influence on each of those priorities. We could, as you say, we could be here all night debating those principles, and I don't see that as being productive or constructive in terms of that. What I want to see us do tonight is to give the Chief Executive some guidance in terms of those projects which are our priorities, which covered by some basic principles in terms of where we see those priorities being.
So a question, Mr. Mayor, what relevance do you attach to number 5, the options, which include 6 draft principles, which I understand is up for debate and adoption or otherwise by the council?
Yeah.
So, my advice has been that council do consider and endorse a set of principles, and the rationale for that is that there'll come a point in time where a value management exercise has to be done, and by agreeing to a set of principles, it helps you as colleagues make each other accountable for the as Councillor Allen has kind of described, the rules of the game. Now, we haven't developed a robust matrix system that means that every project is going to go through the key principles and we're going to give it so many points for, where it falls on the continuum. If council want to go there, that's a piece of work we would need to go away and do. And so the intent is that the principles were to become guidelines. It's to help frame your conversation, but it's certainly not. It's not you as a council saying that. And this might be a bad example because it might be that council decide that principle one's not a principle, but let's say it was. That's not to say that when you come to a decision about the Manukau Domain shared pathways, that council is saying, well, no, that's off the radar, but it's saying if we're then making a decision about whether we give funding to the Manukau Domain shared pathways or the Te Mare Park development, you've got a bit of a scale there where the guidelines are saying that preference should be given to those communities where targeted rates are paid. Now, I appreciate that these 6 principles are not perfect, like they were a guide to get your conversation going about what matters to you, and so that might be a principle that council's like, no, actually drop it, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, can I just say that and I think this is where Deputy Mayor was going as well, and by saying what I said in terms of the principles, I was adding them into the mix for consideration, Councillor Allen. So, because these 6 principles have no standing, no mandate until the council gives them weight or mandate. And so that's the discussion I thought we were in, which is what should be the principles. Okay.
Okay, so in that case, we'll go through each principle line by line and we'll see have a discussion about whether you want to retain it, amend it, or agree with it. Okay. So the first principle is priority will be given to projects that fall within those areas of the district that pay targeted water rates. Councillor Mitchell.
I would like that one taken out just because I think there are so many of those green light ones which do not fall within areas where those rates are paid.
Councillor Allen. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, if Councillor Mitch is moving, that's seconding it, that principle be dropped.
Do we need to make resolutions for every principle?
Depends how controversial they are.
Okay.
I think if there's
all right, the resolution on the table is moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor Allen, that we remove the priority given to projects that fall within those areas of the district that pay target water rates. Any discussion? All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, so that principle is removed. Second principle is that priority will be given to those projects that will not fall under the jurisdiction of the new water services entity.
Moved.
Agreed? Okay, so the resolution is that is put into the principles. Moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor Mitchell. All those in favour? Thank you. Stays. Third principle is that priority will be given to new projects and initiatives or existing projects that are already underway but have the potential to be scaled up or accelerated.
Moved.
Yes. Support. Everyone, I'll put that motion then. All those that agree with that? Against? Carried. Council will aim to ensure that funding is spread across the district.
And I think the word is framework, as Councillor Jennings said, that a framework. Can I ask the Chief Executive?
So you could write it as council will. So I deliberately kind of kept it broad so that it was guidelines, but you could add council will aim to ensure that funding is spread across the district by allocating funding across each ward. So that
This might be our one crack to make it something very transformational, and I think.
So we have a suggestion or a recommendation to the amendment from Deputy Mayor Mason. Is there any support for that from Councillor Jennings?
I'm not. I need to understand exactly what's being suggested.
What's being said. So, council will aim to ensure that funding is spread across the district, proportionate to. Oh, Rosen's got it here. Good.
By allocating funding to each ward.
On per capita population basis.
Oh, I was going to.
Take it out.
No, it's more of a framework that there is funding allocated within each ward.
So at the start of the conversation, Councillor Mason suggested a kind of per capita basis. So that was kind of getting to this end of the continuum where we were quite specific about how much money per each ward. At the moment, the principle in my report's fairly kind of quite broad and waffly. It says like let's just the whole district, and I think what Councillor Mason is now recommending is kind of this compromise that says, well, can we at least make sure that each ward gets something out of this by saying spread across the district, across each ward. So that would mean if you get to the end of your projects and you're like, hang on, there's not a project here for the Mitanui ward, you hold yourself accountable and you say, no, we've said this funding is going to be spread across the district and there would be something for each ward.
In some ways, that actually restricts it, because if you look at the Waipehu ward, it's so long and narrow. There's Waitarere, there's Manukau, there's Oho, you know, and you're basically saying, okay, we give something to Waitarere, we don't need to give it to Manukau because the ward's already got it. Whereas spread across the district means spread across the district.
Yeah, we've got a mover and Joe and seconded by Councillor Jennings. So we just need to make sure that we've got that wording. Sorry, Grayson.
So the wording would be that council will aim to ensure that funding is spread across the district by allocating funding across wards.
So all those four, can I just see a rows of hands actually would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, we're voting. So in terms of what are you seeking in terms of?
Well, in terms of you've moved that by allocating funding across wards, I thought the argument was that every ward had to get something, and that's not saying that.
Across each ward.
Across each ward. That's that.
Okay, across each ward. Okay, sorry, can I just see that show of hands again? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the motion is carried. Thank you. A project cannot be allocated more than half the total amount available in total.
Moved.
Do I have a second? What does that actually mean?
So that means that no project can get more than 2.5 million.
Okay, understood. So moved by Councillor Allen. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Brannigan. All those in favour? Against? 2. Yeah. No, we're only talking this tranche. Yes, as we know, second tranche may not appear. Oh, it'll be completely different. There'll be a new council. Iwi. They might have different views, exactly. So, last principle, only projects that have a broader linkage to the next stage of the Better Off funding could receive more than $500,000 from the Better Off funding. The intention here?
Like, this is totally at council's discretion, but the intent here was that idea that if you look across those projects, there were very few of them, and to be honest, probably only Levin Town Centre and Paritua Gardens development, Foxton Future Work, they were probably the only two projects where you could see long term how when we go to apply for tranche 2, how those, like there's kind of this long term, a lot of them were kind of short term, we just need to do it, spend the money. So where the council wants to say, well, where it's a kind of one-off, that we don't want to spend more than X amount of dollars.
Councillor Mitchell?
Could I move against that? Simply because now that we have agreed on Foxton Pool going ahead, and that's a one-off, there may be situations where you need to actually allocate more than 500,000 for a one-off.
Seconded.
For the sake of efficiency, can we move the recommendation and then those that wish to vote against it do so that it goes off the table rather than have an amendment to it? Sorry? Okay, so is there anyone prepared to move that this principle stay on the table?
No, they don't like it.
They don't like it? Okay, so the principle is removed. Okay, so let's, Councillor Jennings.
So then can I move an additional principle then?
Certainly.
Yep. So I'd like to move that we add the principle that we give preference to large transformational projects that are have multiple phases. So it kind of picks up on a little bit of the previous the principle that we just got rid of, but talks about those larger projects.
Can you just clarify what you mean by multiple phases?
Yeah, well, so it's basically trying to speak to the fact that there could be phases with future. This is exactly the point that Chief Executive was just making. If you want to get rid of that have multiple phases, I'm not going to die in a ditch, but
I'm just not clear what you mean by
it could be phased or something like that. It's basically saying that it's not just that one-off bang, we're spending $100,000 and it's done. It's actually, this could be scaled up. There could be additions to this. There's, could be done in parts. Because that's just talking about existing projects.
So maybe it should read to give preference to large transformational projects that have the potential to be future development, or as well for
I'm happy to move that with that agreement.
Give preference to large transformational projects that have the potential to be further developed in phases and stages. Sorry?
Can I speak to that?
Well, I'm just trying to get some wording correct that the mover is satisfied with. Are you comfortable with that? Is there a second, Councillor Deputy Mayor Mason? So, Councillor Brannigan, you wish to speak?
Any concern with that is that that may well make the second guiding principle that we've adopted, which was expanded on by Councillor Mason, Deputy Mayor Mason, about spreading across the district in each ward, it may be challenging to find a project for a particular ward if that's the guiding principle. Just a concern on that one.
I think that that's a valid point, Councillor Brannigan, but I think the important thing to remember here is that we're going to write out those principles on the whiteboard, and you as elected members will be thinking about that when you make decisions, but it's not kind of a tick, it's not a test. Unless council say we want to develop the test and you want us to, have Daniel quickly set up a multi-criteria analysis whereby we do the test. It's these are the guiding principles to help you make the decision.
But plainly, we'll need to have some flexibility then, if that's the case. Okay.
Because, well, I would imagine that if we have 7 guiding principles, and if each project would have some, they wouldn't qualify under all those principles, I would imagine. So exactly, we will see. Time will tell. Councillor Allen.
Just look, speaking against it, the risk with that one for me is that it then lends immediate preference or bias towards the big ticket money items, because it's clearly instructing us that where those large transformational projects, where they're there, they are going to have precedence. And by definition, to me, those two words, large and transformational, suggest that those are the big ticket items. And that doesn't address the fact that sometimes small is precious too, that there can be little dollars spent for really big gain. So to me, it sort of traps us in our thinking too much. I know it's a guiding principle, but it traps us too much.
I'd like to add one, and we can thrash the words around.
So, is this in the same one? In relation to this one here? Because we want to deal with that first and then we'll come back to you, all right?
Well,
Councillor Jennings.
Can I just reply to Councillor Allen by saying we've heard the Chief Executive tonight say multiple times organisation has capacity constraints. So number of smaller projects is not better. We're talking about needing to be smart about how we invest this money to be transformational, and looking at the criteria underpinning the whole point of the Better Off funding. We have to lend preference to this. We have to give priority to this. To do otherwise, and to keep going with this sort of view that actually we should do multiple projects. Well, it's inferred.
I just want to remind councillors that we've already endorsed a principle that says priority will be given to new projects and initiatives or existing projects that are already underway but have the potential to be scaled up or accelerated. So, Councillor...
Could a compromise, therefore, Councillor Jennings, be that the word transformational is included in that priority will be given to new projects and initiatives or existing projects that are already underway but have the potential to be scaled up, are transformational or can be accelerated?
Yeah, I'd be comfortable with that, as long as the transformational connects with the new projects and initiatives rather than existing, because we've already got the contract with community for existing stuff, so it's about new transformational stuff for me.
Priority will be given to transformational new projects and initiatives. Is that okay with you? Well, I'm just conscious that we've already endorsed a principle and now we're going back to change it. Yes, it is. We always said this was going to be a little messy, so muddly. First of all, I need to make sure that Councillor Jennings and Deputy Mayor Mason are comfortable with that proposed change.
Could I suggest that with Principle 3, we remove the comma after initiatives, and then add after scaled up, add
be transformational, or can be accelerated. Did that work? I think that kind of confuses things. Okay. I just want to get this right, because I know that when it comes to debate, Councillor Allen's going to be repeating back these criteria against me, and I want to make sure we have transformational in the right place.
So we're removing the proposed new principle. We're adjusting principle 3. Yep. Okay. Which has already been moved. So we have to then go back and make sure that everybody is now comfortable with the amended priority 3. That now includes the word transformation.
Would you like me to read it back?
It's in a different place to where you suggested it, Mr. Scott.
Well, that's just not good.
David, we've just made an alteration to where the word transformational will appear, so sorry, you're going to have to,
After scaled up, comma, transformational, or can be accelerated.
Yes. Yes. So, can I just get everybody's support for the alteration that we've made to that principle? Okay. Councillor Bishop, you had a new principle. You've lost it? Okay, so those are the 4 principles that will guide us. Now we're going to move. Number 3? It's not what's on the whiteboard, it's what's been recorded in the minutes anyway. Okay, so now we're going to go back to the recommendations on page 167. And 2.3, the Council endorsed the Three Waters Reform Better Off funding principles used to guide decision making on how the funding will be allocated. Moved, Councillor Allen, seconded Deputy Mayor Mason. All those in favour? Against? Carried, thank you. Now we go to the projects themselves, and so our next recommendation is that we endorse the shortlist of projects. So what we're going to seek from councillors now then is their preferred shortlist. So, Jacinda.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. We have a couple of options. I have sent this out to all of you to your emails, so you do have it sitting there, sitting in your email. You should see a link from me, if that makes it easier for you if you prefer to see things on the screen. But what we'd look to do now is just to go through and there's a proposal there in terms of the Y's or the green is the areas that are initially in the proposal, which gets us to 3.96 million. So at this stage now, probably the simplest thing is to go through each one, have a vote on whether you agree that it should be in or out, and then we can understand what the implications are from a from a funding perspective. So if you are, Councillor Jennings probably is quite likes to have a go at modelling himself. So if anyone is keen on having their own look at what that looks like and what they've got within their emails, you're welcome to do that yourself. There's a column for each of you. You're welcome to put yeses in the ones you think you want to put forward, and you can see your totals at the bottom. So, but we'll go through it centrally. You haven't got it yet? Do all of you have it in your email? It's not necessary that you all have it, so we'll go through it individually for now. It's no need to make it more complicated than it needs to be. So if we just go through each one now. Is it easiest if I just talk through each one?
Yes.
Okay. So first off, the Oho River Picnic Park on Podes Road, 150,000, and originally that was given the green from the Dragon's Den.
Can we speak to this, because that wasn't given a green, because I gave it a black. So I don't know how it got green.
So how it worked at the Dragon's Den, remember that it was not a decision making process, it was just a guidance. If more than if two tables gave it a green, it became a green. So if one table gave it a black, that didn't mean it went off. Yeah, there were 3 tables, and so if 2 tables gave it a colour, that's what the colour became. But regardless of that, it doesn't actually really matter if it was a orange, green, or red. They're all here today.
So, Jacinda, just in terms of clarity, if people don't think that this project is in their top 5 or 6, in other words, their shortlist, they should say no.
No. Can we go around the room just to...
All right. Sorry?
5.
Oh, 5.
Top 5.
Top 5.
So just for clarity, because we're going to start because otherwise we're going to be here till midnight.
Yeah.
We're going to go around the room, and you're going to give your top 5 projects. And that Jacinta is then going to model that to hopefully see whether we've got some consensus. And of course, as you're giving us your top 5, you are reflecting on the rules of the game and the guidelines that you've endorsed.
Okay, so when you say you're going to give us top 5, we're not doing project by project. You're going to ask each individual councillor to give 5 straight away, or we're going to go project by project, and you're going to say yes and no. Jacinta's going to keep record of how people support or not those projects, so she will get an indication as you're not allowed to vote for more than 5. Okay? All right. Well, I'm just trying to make it easier for you.
So how do we advocate? When do we discuss these?
So I'll let the chief executive explain. I was going to say that this is just to give the guidance to the chief executive to go away and build a better, give us back a report as to whether, these projects can be, a business case, I suppose, in terms of whether they will proceed, a bit more costing, a bit more, then we will, at our September meeting, sign off those projects that we wish to put forward to DIA for that tranche of money.
So, yeah, but just to Councillor Allen's point, I'm not bringing back a business case on all of these projects in September. So you must prioritise, and so I wonder whether to assist before the top 5, before each councillor gives their top 5, if there are any particular projects that councillors feel like they need to speak to, then my advice is, Mayor Bernie, that's probably the best approach. And it's probably, just to kind of give fairness to the process, if we just scroll down, Jacinta, particularly those projects that have kind of been added since the Dragon's Den process.
So, Mr. Mayor, I know that we need to, The risk is it'll be 3 years in the making. I know that risk. But my suggestion is that we do identify our top 5, that's fine, but that's not where it ends, because we see how it falls, and if the councillor feels there's one missing that they really want to have it, then we have that discussion where a councillor can advocate for ones that are not currently there. So then we've got, I hope, the best of both worlds. It may well be, and I'm hopeful there'll be some that are just no-brainers, council support 3 or whatever, but there's the opportunity to advocate, which we've got to have that chance.
Councillor Robert, did you have a question?
Oh, sorry.
Or did you want to give your top 5?
Okay then. Yes, sir.
Okay, go for it.
There you go, Sue. Thanks.
Te Māori Park, Oha River Picnic Park, Lake Punahou, Levin Town Centre, Manukau Domain.
Sorry,
You could read them in order, it would be very helpful, but that's okay if it's
Oh, I haven't got my...
No, in the order that they're in the list is probably what you mean. Do you mean, Jacinta?
Okay, the Oho River Picnic. What's next? Is Lake Punahou?
Yes.
Levin Town Centre?
Levin Town, well there's 2 Levin Town Centres, so, but yeah. And Manukau Domain.
And Te Māori.
And Te Māori.
Yeah.
Which I've got mine.
Yeah. Okay.
Later.
Okay. Who wants to go next? Todd.
Number 1, Levin Town Centre. Number 2, Manukau Domain. Number 3, Foxton Aquatic. Number 4, Treat Track. Number 5, software for resource consent.
Sorry, can you please give them in the order that they appear on the list,
Oh, so
rather than your priorities?
In the order of,
no,
okay,
on the list.
Software's come out.
Oh, is it? I'm still looking at it here. Procurement, contract management. Okay.
No, so those 2 items are going to progress within operational budgets.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, in order which is on the screen, is that where we're asking?
Yes,
sorry?
please.
Okay, sorry, misunderstood that. So I'll go with Waterbury Surf Club Development, Levin Town Centre, Trig Mountain Bike Track, Manukau Domain, and Foxton Aquatics.
Thank you.
Levin Town Centre.
Sorry, Todd, can you just turn your mic off? Sorry.
Trig, Lake Punahou. I've got Stafford Street and Levin Dump Station.
So I hope I hope I've rewritten them in order. So for me, it's Levin Town Centre, Lake Punahou, Manukau Domain, Stafford Street, and the Foxton Courthouse.
Surf Club, Levin Town Centre, Events and Destination Management Strategy, Rural Hall Drinking Water, and Livinable.
I'll go next. Levin Town Centre, Trig, Lake Punahau, Manukau Domain, and the Foxton Aquatic Centre. Yes, I did.
That's why I don't do this job.
Yeah. Do you?
You want me to do it again? Levin Town Centre, Trig, Lake Punahau, Manukau Domain, and the Foxton Aquatic Centre. Councillor Brannigan.
Wateroo Surf Club, Levin Town Centre, events management strategy and destination management strategy, Tamaru Park and Foxton Courthouse.
Levin Town Centre, Manukau Domain Shared Pathways, Stafford Street Reserve, Events and Destination Management Strategy, and Livinable Project.
You ready, mate? Yep.
Wateroo Surf Club, Levin Town Centre, Trig, Lake Punahau, and Manukau Domain.
Who hasn't given these? Christine.
I've got 6.
Oh, Perry.
You're only allowed 5.
You only have 5, Chris.
Right, the Wateroo Surf Club development, the Levin Town Centre development, the Manukau Domain Shared Pathways, Foxton Aquatic Centre, Rural Halls Drinking Water, and Surrey.
Levin Town Centre. These won't be in order. Foxton Aquatic Centre. Manukau Domain. There's 3. Fourth one, Lake Punahau, and the 5th. Question for clarification. The events one, management strategy, is it another document or is it the actual work program and implementation of the strategy? Because if it's implementation, that's my number 5. Okay.
Yeah, it's execution, it's bringing the strategies to life, it's allowing Lisa to
They're
put it on
doing.
steroids.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everyone's contributed, haven't they? Cool. Okay, so Jacinta have you got a top 5 for us? Or shortlist is what I'm looking for. A shortlist. Well, that'll be part of the next discussion. The equations. Okay. So, what we're going to get now, though, is that people then are going to try to promote a project that they has not succeeded in the top 5.
Sum total it. Jacinta? Can you sum total it at the bottom? How much money? Row B, column B, sum total.
4.5.
Okay, so Jacinta's going to explain how we filtered that. Jacinta, explain.
Okay, so what we've done here is each of you, where you've put your yeses. So what we've done here on the side down here is counted the ones with the most yeses. So that, for example, 11, there were 11 of you that selected Live in Town Centre as one of your top priorities. There were 8 that selected Manukau Domain Shared Pathways and down the list. So in terms of what that equals, if we were to go with the probably gone too many on the list, so I'll just take a couple off. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I was just going to ask clarification. So, because of the earlier decision tonight about the pool, Foxton pool, is that still in the mix around where the funding source for that is? So we hadn't. I thought the resolution was that it was debt funded. So
Well, the resolution was that you increase the budget. You haven't actually decided where it comes from. We've made an assumption we'll debt fund it, but also made an assumption we'd be selling ourselves to funding applications. But, I think that yeah.
It makes it fit.
So you could say 500. Yeah, 500k to Foxton Aquatic Centre, which then gets you within your limit. And I suppose the question that you kind of need to go through that, and you need to test yourself that based on what you see up there, what's not up there, and then how does that satisfy your rules of the game. But that's actually landed. The Foxton poll. Okay, even if we changed it to 5, Pity, it's not going to change what's up there. Because we're basically, if any of these projects have got 1 vote, we're saying that it comes within the envelope of 5.5 mil. We need to come within an envelope of 5 mil. So we need to shave $500,000.
But then you're also saying that something that's got a low priority is going to be still added in, whereas a project like the Foxton pool is going to get cut where it had more votes and more support. And so that's a discussion as well in terms of where that $500,000 comes from.
Yeah, and I think that some of that is around, if you come back to your guidelines, your principles, where you didn't pass a resolution that said we're going to go, that the big transformational projects are going to be the priority. I think what I heard was actually we're quite keen for there to be a mix. We want there a good spread across the district, and so excuse me, I've got my thing.
This is a little modelling on the fly. We just need to make sure we're clarifying everything quickly. So in terms of the column C, the green column, that's effectively where we sit now based on the conversation that we've all just had. So just to clarify, making the change to the 500,000 for the aquatic centre sits us at 6.1 million.
Yeah, because we've added in the live-in dump station and the Oho River Picnic Park, which got 1 vote each.
Can I just say, surely you would take out the ones that only got 1 or 2 or 3 votes, so that it was, otherwise what's the point of voting?
Yes, happens.
So you knock off the ones that got 1 vote and then see what there is and then progressively work.
Yep.
Can I just check though, because I'm conscious of how Councillor Allen suggested that before we kind of knock some things off, is there anything not on there? Well, no, you can't be because none of you voted for it. So there's nothing on here that people are feeling upset about. Because if there was, you would have voted for it. So actually, we don't need to ask that question. Yeah, so just need to take away the number ones.
So Mr. Mayor, I'm assuming this is now where we have a chance for advocacy to talk before things are knocked off.
So the process now would be to go from the bottom up, if you like, and to see those that got least support are still, if people are still advocating for those to be included or not. So
we have 3 projects that got 2 votes each. Sorry, 4 projects. The Rural Hall drinking waters upgrade, the Te Maire Park development, the Livinable project, and the Foxton Courthouse.
Sorry, Te Maire Park, there's also also reduction in the fund.
Can I just do the mic? I just wanted to... Mr. Mayor, just as a point of process here, that there's a lot of conversation without mics on. It's a public meeting. Yeah, and I'm just worried that the public are just not hearing what we're talking about.
So, Robert, the question was asked, do you consider to be the more transformational project in Shannon? It's Stafford Street or Te Maire Park?
Yeah. Sorry, talk to that now?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Te Maire, there's a whole lot of development, but just needs a little bit more, like a bit of some input into it. Compared to the Stafford Street Reserve, that it only serves probably about 10 people, a core group of people. But Te Maire, you've got what I'm proposing is we just had Matariki there, and we had a huge crowd, up to 500 people that were coming. They were coming from Levin, Manukau, Tokomaru, Foxton, they came in there. But the thing that I put in there was that we need a bandstand, a fencing it off, all that. We've got the electric stations there, and I also was looking about, we've got the whare taiao there, and it brings a huge impact on that part of the town, rather than just down at Stafford Street Reserve.
So those that voted for Te Maire Park, Stafford Street, sorry, those that voted for Stafford Street, okay, so do you want to advocate that remain, or are you comfortable that Te Maire Park and Shannon takes precedence?
So who
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So I was one, and I'm guided by Councillor Ketu, and I'm happy now to put my support behind Te Māori Park. Yeah.
Thank you. So we can change that to some.
Oh, I thought I did.
Sorry,
I already had mine on, yeah. And similarly to Councillor Allen, I'm happy to change my vote and put it to Te Māori Park.
Thank you.
So I'll do that too, but just to remind you, Robert, that wasn't that reserve improvement plan about bringing people into the district for the motorhomes as well? Yeah. Yeah, it was, I'm sure it was Stafford development plan. It wasn't. Can you remember what?
Sorry,
Okay.
just conscious that Robert's not using his mic and answering those questions. So if you, so the consensus is that the Stafford Street project be removed in preference for Te Māori Park. So you've already taken that off, Jacinta. Okay, so we have now the Foxton Courthouse, the Livinable project, and that would get us to if they were restricted and rural water, but that actually is below then the amount of money that we've got allocated. If we took $500,000 from that, we would be 80,000 over our target, and surely we can make some adjustments within the other projects that would bring it down to just under the 5 million that we require, whether it be any of the other projects that might be able to be adjusted slightly, so that we've got so my suggestion is that those two projects at the bottom, which only received 2 votes, we take off, and that will then bring the total to 5,080,000, which is only 81,000 above what our funding allocation is, and that we wait for the report in September to see if we can make some minor adjustments to some of the other total funding amounts. Oh, that's the point. Yeah. So I've just been reminded that there were 3 projects that only received 2 votes, and one of them is for 500, and the other 2 add up to 500. So the question then remains: do we remove the rural hall one, and keep the Livinable project in Foxton Courthouse, or do we remove the Livinable and the Foxton Courthouse and keep the rural hall amount? So, Councillor Mitchell.
Looking at the guiding principles, which is to spread the amount across the district, we already have a substantial amount for Levin Town Centre, and we already have the Foxton Pool, a substantial amount. So I would suggest that those other 2 should drop off because of that, if we're spreading it.
Councillor Isaac.
Yeah, similar. I thought in a tranche of money that we had, we did the water for the marae, and I thought the theory was we do the water for the rural town halls as an equilibrium going forward. That's the way I was seeing it. So I would like the rural halls to stay on there, and if they have to drop 100,000, so be it, to fit within the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Al.
Look, I do agree, but I just want to say something about the courthouse, and I'm not advocating. I'm happy for it to be dropped off, put it like that. Just in terms of the bit of history around that, though, it was identified as non-core property by council, so I can understand why there would be some reluctance to give it that. It's important to note, though, that there has been a fortnight ago, sorry, just over a week ago, there was a significant meeting by the Historical Society, which our CE was at, a very productive meeting where really significant background was given about the history of that courthouse, along with its very strong architectural values. It's the most photographed thing in Foxton. So what I'm asking for is that have a place for debate in the LTP or whatever, that it be captured as something that can be moved to the next stage for discussion rather than simply omitted.
I'm sure that will be noted. Deputy Mayor Mason.
And while I will reluctantly agree to Livinable being removed, I want to put a plug for it. It is a transformational project. It is truly the essence of community-led development, community-led partnership, and it speaks to the heart of transformation for both disadvantaged, disabled and marginalised people in our community, and as Councillor Mitchell said before, would be utilised by people broadly across our district but from all over the area, because a park like that is significant in terms of social and community infrastructure. So it would be a bonus to have that funding to kick-start such a transformational and for lots of people who experience exclusion, life-changing recreational area. And I would have to say it would be way more life-changing than, dare I say it, a picnic park by a river or a picnic reserve by a river. It would be significant, and I have to really reiterate the community-led, community-driven partnership with Pacifica, partnership with iwi, partnership with marginalised people and vulnerable people. That has been the impetus to getting this started, and lots of energy. And while there hasn't been an expectation set up about this funding, it would be a huge bonus to get it kick-started.
Councillor Jennings.
Yeah, look, I just want to lend my weight to what Deputy Mayor Mason's just discussed with the Livinable project. I think it is a really important project. So, in a similar vein to what, I also support Councillor Allen's comments about the Foxton Courthouse. So, I think there are probably a number of projects, those two at the top of the list, that should and could be taken forward to that next LTP amendment decision making process, because I think although they might not get progressed this financial year, in terms of momentum and keeping those on the radar, I think it's important. And there are probably some other projects in the order paper that fit that remit too.
So, and I thank Councillor Jennings for that observation, and very much support the Deputy Mayor's observations about Livinable. We mention it maybe being included in the LTP or whatever. That's a mechanism, but it's a question, I suppose, to the CE, is where we identify these projects as having special value and special status, are there alternative ways that it can be kept on the radar? Is the LTP just noting it for the LTP enough, or is there a stronger mechanism where we can keep it on the radar?
Yeah, one of the things that I was wondering in my mind is if we, just going to bear with me, if we shaved a little bit of some of the other projects, and I'd need to chat to the team about what that meant, but where even if there was a small amount, like even Foxton Courthouse, I'm thinking 20 grand, allocated towards that for the feasibility study around the future to be done, so then you're kind of still signalling that that's important and that there's this other piece of work that will then help feed into the long-term plan amendment and also potentially tranche 2 funding. So that is an option, that you allocate something towards it, because allocating something towards it is actually saying, no, we want to give this a bit more of a shove than we have before.
No, someone's just looking at those projects. You talk about rural hall drinking water, which I'm not across that much, and I presume that's wastewater as well. So is that upgrading at every rural hall we have, is it? Because they drastically need doing. What is that about? Help me out, Chris.
So you wouldn't have to upgrade every rural hall because, for example, Tokomaru and Oho are already on treated water. It wouldn't, Mangaho or Mangori would be. So they'll probably come back to 2 or 3 actually that don't connect. So you could possibly halve that. So really, it's up to Monique's team now to have a look at seriously, exactly what the figures are more likely to be, and you might be able to bring something else up.
And so an example might be, and Lisa Campbell's not here for for her to hear me say this, and so don't tell her I said this, but we could bring back the events and destination management strategy a little bit, at 350, that gives you 50k to put into, for example, the feasibility study and initial design work for the Foxton Courthouse. That is signalling to the Historical Society, actually we care about this, we're going to do something about it. Like the Livable project, you will have all read the email where Blair's giving you an update on the work he's doing with Kainga Ora about a potential redevelopment of those homes. I think if council is comfortable, we're sitting there with $5.5 million worth of projects. You know what the 2 projects are that you would drop off first, based on the conversation you've had today. But how about you endorse this list and leave it for me and my team to come back to the September council meeting with a way that we can make it work or not?
No. So Mr. Mayor, that really valuable advice. Really appreciate that because that's far better than the rather loose. Let's flick it into it. So really grateful for that. I just want to pick up on the idea about shaving some stuff off, and I know the officers will do that, but a bit of guidance from the table tonight might also help. I'm really keen I heard the message from Deputy Mayor Mason about Livinable, and I'm still really keen that the courthouse, for lots of reasons, be captured also. And I want to suggest, by way of guidance, that we do shave some money off the Foxton Pool, the aquatic centre, and put the challenge to the community to get some other funding. The Foxton Beach freeholding account, there's a strong history there of partnership with them, and I think it's not an unreasonable ask to say to them, look, we're under the pump here, all the reasons that were given in the earlier debate, and to actually challenge a bit more money from them. That we want the project to be subsidised to the tune of $1 million from Three Waters, but also from the freeholding account or some other funding source. So just a bit of personal view there around.
I'm sure the Chief Executive will take that opinion on board, and that we can move forward. So, okay, in that case we now have a short list.
Just important that I add to that, and I totally agree with Councillor Allen's comments around the pool, the freehold account contribution. I just want to make that clear. But also really keen on the rural hall, get the merits, but there must be some space there to use some of that funding elsewhere.
The other project is just acknowledging the great work Councillor Keto did on the Te Maire Park development, but that's not a project that our team have actually scoped and priced, and so it might be we might not need the full 500 even, so we'll talk to the team.
So, we now need to go to recommendation 2.4, that Council endorse the shortlist of projects to be progressed into a funding proposal for final consideration at the September Council meeting. And those projects as listed, So moved by Councillor Brannigan, seconded by Councillor Allen. All those in favour? Against? Carried. And 2.5, the Council asks the Chief Executive to continue conversation with Iwi Hapu on the shortlisted projects and progress input and feedback into the final report for the September Council meeting. I've seen nodding ahead, Councillor Jennings, Councillor Allen. All those in favour? Against? Carried. I think we've finally made it. Thank you all for your engagement and the debate and discussion that's gone on in the last 8 hours. We appreciate certainly the staff staying for as long as they have and lasting it out. And all those that are still watching on live stream, if any, please can you come and see me and I'll give you a chocolate fish. I'll declare, sorry Robert, would you mind just closing our meeting off, please?
Yeah, kia ora tātou, anō ki tō tātou wānanga I tēnei pō. Our communities, you know, they'll be happy with this group of people making decisions like this. So, oia nō, tēnei te mihi aro ki a koe. Amene. That's it.